Hello and welcome to the New York Jewish Film Festival. I'm Aviva Weintraub. I'm director of the festival from the Jewish Museum, and the festival is co-presented every year in January by the Jewish Museum and Film at Lincoln Center. This year, we're really excited to be showing a wonderful documentary called Grossman, and I'm thrilled to have with me to discuss the film's director, Adi Arbel, and producer Arik Bernstein. Both of you are joining from Israel. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Maybe we can start by you talking about how the project came to be. How did it, whose idea, who was involved in the beginning? Can you talk a bit about that?
The idea came up actually quite 1 or 2 months before David was about to go to Croatia for the session that he does this was his third book, the session that he does with his translators. And this came up, the idea came up his last book, but this time he was all for it and the translators agreed, and we managed to get together pretty quickly. This came through David's literary agent, Deborah Harris, and through my partner, Dudi Silber. And then Adi joined in and we said, okay, first of all, let's go to Croatia and spend almost a week with David and the translator from morning to evening and during, after that. And I'll just say before, Adi picks up, because that's really when it happened, is that there was some kind of wishful thinking on behalf of David and on behalf of our broadcaster that we'll come back with a film. And then we'll just have to spend a couple of weeks in the editing room and whoops, we'll have a film. But that's not exactly what happened. And then Adi could tell how it didn't happen.
Well, for many years, David really didn't want to take a part in a personal film. He did agree, as Arik said, to participate in this translator's session. He said it's a very unique event and you can shoot this. And then I just asked whether we can have an interview with him. So he said, okay, I can speak with you for a few hours only about literature. So we start talking about writing and literature. And of course it was about life, and literature is life and life is literature. And that's how it started. But it took us, each time we felt, Arik and I, that we're going forward with him and backwards, and it was a very slow dynamic. It's true that after this week of shooting in Croatia, we already had trust and friendship, and he knew it's okay to put the film in our hands. But still, he's a very kept and reserved person. And he's very discreet with his personal life, so it took us time. But as you see in the film, it paid off to walk this way with him. It was a slow one.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So how much time how long did the process take, let's say, from Croatia to the finished product?
2 years. It took 2 years.
Wow.
Altogether, 2 years.
And
we also had Corona in the middle. Don't forget.
Oh my God.
So we had a date to go to David's house and do some filming, and then it was postponed by another week and another quarantine, whatever. So that also slowed us down.
Wow. He really comes across in the film as the gentlest person in the world, really very, like you said, reserved, but at the same time, like a beautiful soul. It must have been hard to choose what to keep in the film and what not to use. Is that correct?
Completely. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I think in many documentaries, that's the problem in the end, how you can still tell one story out of all these anecdotes and different stories. I think my main interest was with all the relations that he has since childhood with all the death subject and how he deals with it in the books and in his life. And I always aim to go and speak with him about this subject. When he saw I think the third time he saw the rough cut, he understood what I was trying to tell about him, which is good. I didn't want him to know in advance because it would change anything. He's very smart and he sees everything and he sees through persons. But after, I think it was the third time that he saw the rough cut, he told me, now I understand what you're trying, which story you are trying to tell about me. It was
I
really...
can say from, Adi showed David 3, I saw about 30. And I think the main thing I could just say for Adi is not only to how you take 100 hours and making it into one, but what story really Adi wanted to tell. That's the main issue. So it's not only a matter of editing, it's a matter of writing, of what's, because we could have told a different story, right, Adi? I mean, it could have been a different film. We
Yes.
had the material for 2 or 3 types of film.
Completely, but still the story behind To the End of the Land, Isha Borachat Mibsora, the story behind this book, that he writes this book while his son Uri is in the army. It's such a unique, universal story. When reality reaches the literature and they collapse one to each other, it's beyond imagination, this story. And I knew we must have it in the film because it's a mythical story. I mean, so from the beginning, I knew that this story must be in the film about David Grossman.
Yes, and maybe you can. He's very well known here in the States, in New York. And I imagine he's that it's hard for him to walk down the street in Israel, that everyone knows who he is. Is that accurate? And what was it like? Or maybe you only really interviewed him inside. Is he as famous as I think he is in Israel? I guess I'm not talking about fame like movie star fame, but my impression is that when the tragedy happened, when his son was killed, that really the entire country felt it and knew about it. Do you think that's true in Israel? Adi?
I think the whole country, it's a small place, Israel, and he's very known here. And he's like the voice of Israel in a way.
Yes.
When this tragedy happened, I think the whole country was with him and with them. And still nowadays.
And it's it's strange with David because, you know, this is kind of a weird country, as some of you might realize by now. What happens with David is that, you know, he's very much a left-wing protester, and he doesn't hide it. And in many ways, you know, in Israel, it's weird, but the fact that his son died in a war kind of, I don't know how to say this delicately, but kind of gave him a kosher stamp. I mean, he can say whatever he wants now.
Wow.
He paid his dues 1 million times over, and he can say whatever he wants. And that gave him, and you know, what he thinks at home with his wife is a different story, but publicly he is very open, always was, and probably will be. I mean, that's who he is.
Israelis likes to call him and to give him the job of a prophet, and he really doesn't like it. But
yeah,
each few years it comes back. Even now in the COVID, he wrote a very important article just when we started, and it has this echo of a prophet. So even he's very modest and he doesn't like it. It happens each time. He feels that there are certain things he must say.
Yes.
And they echo around the country, and he runs away from this definition, and he finally keeps on.
It was very moving that you had the footage of the press conference of the three writers, of David Grossman, Amos Oz, and A.B. Yehoshua. Can you talk about that press conference a little bit?
It was one of these treasures that you find when you make a visual archive research. There were many are not in the film, and I'm the only one to keep on thinking about the other treasures that we couldn't use in order to tell one story, coherent story. There is these certain moments in this press conference when he's quiet, when you can see in his eyes that he's thinking about his son, about the war now. It's really seconds. We even used the slow motion for this to really to have the chance to grasp it. It's moment, but his eyes tells everything there. And one of the most important approach in this film for me was to succeed through his. There are many close-ups of him, very close, very gentle. I really felt all during the shooting his look, his eyes, and that he's studying me, not less than I'm studying him. Mm. And I think that it's a strong moment in. If people would watch this conference without the context of all his close-ups in the film, it would feel different. But you already feel that you so intimate with him, that you know him from so closely, from so many close-ups in the film. Yes. That you see the change. And after the tragedy with his son killed, you can see the change on his face, like he grew older. All the face looks different. It's obvious, but it's really strong to really see it on his close-up in one film, in 1 hour.
Yes.
It's all these things that goes beyond the words. He's so good with words, but I wanted to add something that you can see, not only to listen to.
He says something about something to the effect that the truly important things in life happen in the kitchen, or in
bedrooms.
in the bedroom, in the kitchen. And I think you did a wonderful job of conveying that worldview. Is there anything you could say about that, about his approach?
When we just started the film, we were thinking of maybe shooting him in a studio on green screen and then change all the behind. And he stood on the side and let me and Arik deal with all this visual approach and wanting to do something different. And maybe he reads from the books and you see all kind of background change. And just at the end of this process, he heard all this approach and he told me, but how can you speak with me in a cold studio? It must be in my house, in my study room, in my kitchen. I need a warm place for our talks, for this dialogue. And so like this flew all our concepts of
and he was right, of course.
Go ahead.
No, I said he was right, of course. It only happened that way. And also, for your question before about the news conference that you talked about, because
yes,
the story of David and his writing and the book and the scene of the press conference with Yoshua and Oz, and then his son, if somebody would have brought me a script, I'd say, that's nonsense. I mean, it's impossible. And it is, it's really, it's Shakespearean. I mean, it's unbelievable that this happened. So it kind of, and I think something, again, for me, it was great because Adi would say, I had the luxury of seeing the film once a week, not every minute. And suddenly you feel that when you see, Uri as a 3-year-old kid, the first thing that comes to mind is, fuck, in 20 years, he's going to be gone. I mean, that's something that, and
yes,
that's, I think it's a great achievement that Adi did, that you plant this kind of memory that the people have of, even if it's 45 minutes earlier in the film, what's going to be with this little brilliant little kid, and that breaks your heart from long before it really happens.
yeah, absolutely.
On the way back from Croatia, from this week of shooting, it was the first time that David told me, okay, Adi, you can mention Uri in the film.
Mm.
That's how we proceed in this film.
Yeah. It wasn't obvious from the first moment.
Yeah, that must have been so difficult for him to talk about in that way.
Yeah, it was.
There's a moment, to go back to the workshop with the translators, which is such a fantastic idea. And there's a moment where he says something like that it's exciting and maybe moving for him to think about the fact that what he writes will be read in so many different languages and so many different countries. And it's almost like a pride, and yet I think you do a tremendous job, a wonderful job of showing, the reach of his work and the power and how important it is to so many people. And also the idea of coming back to the home, that the really important things like we said, happen in a quiet, private, domestic space. And I think the translator scene is the one where we see him most interacting with other people. It's such a great idea, and it's interesting to know that that's in a way where the film started, with the translators workshop. When you felt that you might be moving away from that being the center of the film, although it's still very important and fascinating, did you have a kind of shift in orientation towards the project then?
I watched again and again and again the shooting days there, and there are, until the last rough cast, I tried to put more of it in the film, to see it more, but it's one of the things, it's a professional discussion with lots of love and important issues. But finally, I told myself, if I would go to see a film about David Grossman and just have this, I would be disappointed. I would want more. I always tell Arik that we should do a different short film about the translation, because there's magic there. And I feel frustrated that I couldn't show more of this magic. But it's a different film, I really believe now.
And where, I know that this film was in the Dak Aviv Film Festival. How has it been shown in Israel? Was it shown widely or?
Yeah, it was shown in Dak Aviv, it was shown on television.
Okay.
On channel 11, which is the public channel, and many screenings online, but many community centers with a talk, without a talk, etc. But actually, internationally, you're the first.
Right, that's great.
We're proud to be here.
This is a world premiere. If you put Israel aside, this is the international premiere.
All right, that's wonderful.
Many of his Israeli readers came to see the film at Dak Aviv and on TV, and they wanted to see it twice, 3 times. Lots of his admirers really enjoyed the film.
Wow, that's great.
It became a film that people see for a few times.
His latest book, which is translated into English, More Than I Love My Life, which is actually the book that we see in the film being translated, and the opening scene when David goes to the camp, the concentration camp, which the film takes place, came out both in New York and in London a few months ago. I think the hard came out in August, and I think the paperback came out later, like it usually does. I think in September, October, the paperback came out.
Yes, great. And I'll just mention the title again is More Than I Love My Life.
Right.
David Grossman's newest book.
Right, Random House.
He's the only writer in the world that does this translation session with the translator, that he reads them all the book from cover to cover, and they speak about it and they ask questions. It's really unique.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ginter Grass used to do it. That's what they say. But now only David Grossman reads with his translators.
Great. Well,
so he knows how to read. I mean, this is something which is very important to him and to the audience. I mean, he spent years and years and years and years on the radio. So, I mean, he knows how to tell a story, not only in writing, but he's a performer.
Yeah, that was really fascinating to learn about that, his long involvement with the radio and as the reading the news as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about the film, the future?
Would have been nice to be with you guys in New York.
Oh, we wish. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to make plans these days, right?
Yeah. It's too bad.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us on Zoom.
Thank you. It was
Thank
lovely.
you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.